Welcome back, guys. Video 2 on the series of how to. In the description of every single videos in this series, there'll be a link down below you guys can check out, and there'll also be a link at the very end of this video. In today's topic of how to, we're going to talk about when to lime food plots, how to lime food plots, when to lime them. And the first video of this, we talked about soil samples. So this is part 2 of this. Is what do you do with that soil sample when it tells you that you have to add lime, what kind of lime you use, and so forth. So when you're liming food plots, and after you do your soil sample, because there's no way to tell how much lime you need without doing a soil sample, okay? If you're adding lime without a soil sample, how do you know how much lime to put down? How do you know you're not wasting money? The cost of everything's going up. So you can't just throw lime down and not know how much you need. Now, if you're maintaining a certain pH and you're adding lime, that's a different story we'll get into later. But in a general rule, when you do your soil sample, you need to get that lime down on the ground as quick as possible and get that worked into the soil. And the reason that lime is so important is because without the correct pH, you're wasting your money with fertilizer. Everybody thinks fertilizer, yeah, I can increase the growth of my plot and make it more attractive. What about lime though? Lime can make that food plot more attractive than fertilizer. Because if your pH is low and you're adding fertilizer, that soil can't absorb that fertilizer and utilize it to the plants. Plants, can't utilize that. So you're wasting money on both sides. So your fertilizer is not doing anything, right? So you need to add the lime first, correct your pH. Then you can put your fertilizer in and it'll be more effective. When to lime food plots? Anytime you want. I've done it in the snow, and I don't really recommend it in the snow, but I actually like doing it because you can see where you spread the lime, and you can have even coverage. When it's just bare ground, it's hard to kind of tell where the lime goes. But I've done it in the snow. Just make sure that it's not like ice to where you're throwing that lime on top of the ice and it's just going to wash off when it melts and everything. If you just have a kind of a fluffy snow, it's getting warmer temperatures and the snow's about to melt, go ahead and put it out. And the best case scenario is you can get that lime out and actually work it into the ground. Obviously we can't do that now. The ground's somewhat frozen, and depending what state you're in. But if you can get that lime out, let it sit on the ground, top the ground a little bit, and when it's ready, you're ready to plant, just work it in. And the reason you want to work it in is because if it's just sitting on top, it's going to take a longer time for it to decompose and absorb into that ground. If you can work it in the first couple inches, you're putting that lime at roots level. When those roots develop and grow down, that lime's available at the root level. And that's what's important, is you can incorporate it into the soil. And I like to use pelletized lime just because it's more effective in spreading through a regular broadcast spreader. I've spread a lot of lime with an 100-pound ATV spreader. I think the brand was like Byers. I get it on Amazon, and it's a fairly cheap spreader, but it's one of the ones that I've used, and it's worked for many years. I spread a lot of thousands and thousands of pounds out of that spreader, and it's still kicking. So get that lime out, and there's a lot of pelletized lime, ag lime, which is powder lime. Which one's better? Who knows, right? There's so much controversy with the different types of lime. Who cares, right? Because I haven't seen any difference in it. Powder lime, pelletized lime, it's the same. Some people will say, well, pelletized lime, you can use less and it reacts quicker. Some people say powder lime works faster, right? Well, the mix-up with using less pelletized lime than ag lime, that's not true. It's equal amounts. There's no difference in that lime, right? Pelletized lime is created into a pellet for easier spread. It's got some binders and stuff in there that hold it together and create it into a pellet. But to use the less amount of pelletized compared to ag lime is 100% false. That is not true. Which one reacts quicker? Well, who knows, right? But I haven't seen any difference in it. They both react the same. Now, I do think that ag lime will last longer into the soil than pelletized lime. Pelletized lime seems to be, you add it, adjust the pH, but then it slowly kind of dissipates. But is it because people are using a lot of fertilizer and it drops your pH. Think about that. You know, they'll say, oh, pelletized lime, or I'm adding lime and I correct my pH, but my pH keeps falling. Why is that? Is it because you have a low CEC in your soil? Or is it because you're constantly adding synthetic granular fertilizer and it's lowering your pH? Because a lot of people don't know this, fertilizer has salts and different types of fillers in it that actually lower your pH. If you notice, if you buy a bag of 1010 fertilizer, what's inside of it? Pelletized lime. It's to offset the drop in the pH that your fertilizer is going to cause. It happens. If you're constantly adding fertilizer, you need to balance that out with lime. So every time I plant and add fertilizer, granular fertilizer, I'm throwing out a few bags of lime to offset that drop, because if you continue to add that fertilizer, I promise you it's going to lower your pH, and you're going to be like, what in the world, what is happening here? Because I'm following the soil sample, I added the lime, but my pH is still dropping. Pay attention to CEC and pay attention to how much fertilizer you're actually adding, because that fertilizer will drop your pH. Do a soil sample, get that lime out. I promise you, you'll have good results, more tonnage, a more attractive food plot to the wildlife, and better success this hunting season. Any questions? Drop them down below. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys on the next video in the series. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you want more information on food plots, soil samples, and habitat management, click this video right here on the screen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you guys are new.